Well, hello. Welcome back to another edition of the Savvy Home Seller Housing Market Show. How the heck are you? Hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving and spent time with your loved ones and ate lots of great food. Best part about Thanksgiving is leftover pie, in my opinion. We're not talking about pie tonight, though. We're talking about houses coming off the market in droves, 30% higher than last year this time, and we're gonna dig into it tonight, along with a couple other things. But I wanted to just mention one thing, and as I'm scouring through the news articles, what's happening in the news this week, and what are the headlines, and what is the talk of the town in the housing market, this week, what is all over the news. And more, we're hearing more and more sound bites about a crash, crash, this, crash that, and all the things. And I read those articles, I've researched those articles, and I look at the data, because the one thing that I wanted to just put it out there, if you're new to the show, specifically, if you're not, you already know this stuff, but if you're new, I very much am passionate, and the purpose of this whole YouTube channel is to help you guys advocate for yourselves. And the way you advocate is to keep an open mind, to not let your emotions dictate your opinions, emotions alone. You have to get information, be curious. I have an insatiable appetite for curiosity. I love to learn. I love to learn new things. And on the heels of that, I will say, just because I'm a real estate agent, I've been real estate for 30 years, does not, I do not look at research and data. I never have through rose-colored glasses. I was, to be honest, the oldest out of 5 children. I was the problem child. Why? Because I questioned everything. Everything. Because I want to understand. Don't tell me what this thing is. Tell me why. I started physical therapy on Monday. I messed up my shoulder, to be honest. I think I overdid it a couple months ago with that plumbing stuff. And, talking to the physical therapist and all the things. And she's, you've got some inflammation, likely might have some micro tears in, in your rotator cuff. Okay, great. Explain more. I want to understand. She took out the skeleton models and the diagrams, everything else. I want to understand. I don't want to be told something. I want to understand, I want to digest it so that now I can make my own decision. Okay, I get what you're saying. I'm on the same page. That's what I'm trying to do here. I will never say there's not a crash if I firmly believe there's a crash coming. But the thing of it is, and I read all the comments and all the things on other YouTube videos as well, I want to, if you think there's a crash, tell me why. And then everybody's entitled to an opinion, of course, but don't base it just on one thing. So we're going to get into actually a little bit more of that in a bit. But this is kind of what I do on a weekly basis with this data. And that's what we're going to dig into today, starting with the delisting. So first off, let's see here. Post your wins. Make sure you get up there and see, I usually have this all queued up and fancy, and it didn't. I hadn't have it queued up this time. Nonetheless, doesn't matter. QQ before your question, so I can get you in the chat. There's a poll. I want to understand what's happening in your neighborhood. Are you seeing fewer listings coming off the market? Is it the same? Or have you not noticed? Just let me know what your thoughts are in the poll. Be curious. We're going to talk about the delistings jumping up 30%. And then there's an article that I want to dig into, talk a little bit about, share my commentary on about this price corrections that will be worse than 2008. This is the thing that I've been hearing over and over and over and over. It's going to be worse than 2008. Scare tactics, and I don't know about you guys, I am so sick and tired of scare tactics. I just honestly, I'm craving boring at this point. MH08, hey, you're on time. Thanks so much. Good to see you. We got Kaylee in the house. Very good, very good. Tracy's in the house. Good evening, good evening. Alex, hello. Goofy Girl, love your handle. The holidays are not a popular time of year to put your home up for sale. If homes have been sitting, we're going to talk about this. If homes have been sitting for the past few months unsold, then the owners probably opted to pull them until spring. Yes, we're going to get into that. We got Clark in the house. I owe you a call, Clark. I may have a referral here for you. I'll reach out to you. We got Angie in the house. Hey, how you doing? West Coast. And then we've got let's see. And we got Michael X coming in from Mesa, Arizona. Good to see you. Good to see you. So we're gonna let's just jump right in. And then you guys can share all your commentary as you normally do, which I love. But we are talking about this article, and there are so many articles right now on this subject, and it all stemmed from this Redfin data report. They've released this last week. Was it on Thanksgiving? The data doesn't sleep, doesn't take days off, apparently. And so delistings jumped 28% as sellers pull homes off market rather than settle for low prices. Yes, I took some liberty and put 30% because I like nice round numbers. Not that far off, though. It says nearly 85,000 U.S. sellers took their homes off the market in September, up from 28% a year earlier, and the highest level for that month in 8 years. And they kind of show you the progression dating back to 2016. Now, there's always going to be a seasonal adjustment, always. In September, October, November, there's always going to be that seasonal adjustment heading into the fall, getting ready for the winter. But there are so many different factors in play that are way beyond the seasonal adjustment. This is according to a Redfin analysis of delistings nationwide back through 2016. For this analysis, a home is considered delisted if it went off the market for more than 31 days without selling or going under contract. Okay, so this is not homes that are going off contract as pending or contingent. Every state is a little different. When you're looking at, say, Zillow, and a house goes under contract, it depends on how the MLS data is reported, aggregated out to the websites. Some states, Massachusetts, when a property is marked as pending in our MLS, it matches that in Zillow. Some states keep it as active. I know California, it's active for a long time before it says under contract. Some states, when it goes under contract, it comes off the market. It actually shows as off the market when it's under contract. So they are digging into data with homes that are being from the MLS data they're getting that it's pending and contingent. They're not counting those properties. So that can be a little misleading because you may say, oh gosh, is off the market. Those, depending on your state, those may be properties that just went under contract. It says a listing is considered stale if it is at least 60 days, if at least 60 days have elapsed from the home's original listing date. I'm going to say, because I'm a troublemaker, question everything, commentary for everything. I'm going to say that depends. If you're in Massachusetts, if you're in my area, 30 to 40 days is considered stale. It depends on what the median time frame is in your market. 60 days, I would say, is going to, most definitely when you get into those areas that are on the market for a longer period of time. But you got to know what is the median days on the market in your area compared to what you're looking at. 60, to kind of generalize across the country, but as we have talked about, dug into, and the data and whatnot, the different parts of the country, every part of the country, it's not all the same. And it drives me crazy when I hear, oh, the state's in a buyer's market, hands down, all the things. Not hands down, leaning for sure, but you'd make an offer on a property in Massachusetts and you're not going in ridiculously low under price. You don't have the same leverage in the Northeast as you do the South. You just don't. It's a totally different market. It says, for this analysis, a home is considered at risk of selling at a loss if it was originally listed for no more than 10% above the seller's original purchase price. I have I have a lot of issues with that statement. And this is where the data, yes, I say this, data doesn't lie, data doesn't lie. It's the interpretation of the data, but it's also the source of the data, what type of data that they're looking at. To have a blanket statement in a time where over the last 5 years, during the pandemic, there were more large down payments, 50%, 40% down payments made on properties ever in history. More cash is in, more equity is in properties now more than ever. To say that just because you bought it 2 or 3, 4 years ago, or this doesn't even tell you a time frame. If the original listed price is no more than 10% above the original purchase price, well, so say it wasn't. Say you have a property that's going on the market and they're listing it for exactly what they bought it for, but they put 40% down. Does that mean that's considered a risk at selling? No. Absolutely. They're not going to go into foreclosure. Can the seller say, I don't want to sell it? Yes, which is what's happening. So I have an issue with that statement because it's too much of a blanket. And this is where I want you guys to question all of this stuff. It says delistings have been rising for a year and a half. Well, yes, they have, because the economy has been a roller coaster ride and people are reacting to it. Consumer confidence level, jobs market, all of these things, tariffs, all of these things have been influencing what's happening with the average consumer. So of course people are going to be able to, decide, you know what, it's just not, I'm not ready to do it right now because I thought I was going to get this and now I'm getting this. And that doesn't match up with my goals. So I need to take a step back and reevaluate. It says we're comparing September to past Septembers because delistings are seasonal, peaking in the winter months. I mentioned that earlier. It says, but looking back over the last few years shows that delistings have been rising since the spring of 2024. Again, economic factors, big time economic factors. With year-over-year growth and delistings peaking at 39% in June of 25. They also surged in 2022 when mortgage rates rose from pandemic era lows and home buying demand dropped. Well, of course, if all of a sudden the interest rates go up and your ability, if you're selling and then buying another property, your ability to purchase that next property significantly decreases, then taking the best thing you could possibly do is hit pause and take a step back. Sorry, I forgot how to breathe there for a second. Has that ever happened to anybody? It says delistings, delistings increasing over the last year and a half. You can see the graph, and it says it goes into like several reasons. More sellers are pulling their homes off the market. I always think this is interesting to see how accurate these might be. It says surge in stale listings, 7 out of 10, 70% U.S. homes listed were stale in September, meaning that they had been on the market for at least 60 days without going into contract. Taking it one step further, the typical home that was delisted in September had been on the market for 100 days before the seller pulled it off the market. Stale listings have been elevated for the last several years because there are 500,000 more sellers than there are buyers. I don't know if I agree with that. Many sellers are pulling their homes off the market rather than letting it linger, or potentially cutting the price. Feeds back into what I was talking about earlier. Slow demand. Listings are going stale because of slow home buying demand. Well, yeah, because home affordability is at all-time low. And you can't, home buyers can't afford, the income levels and the median sale prices are so out of whack. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to get your foot in the door when you don't own a home. When you're buying your first home, especially, you have no equity leverage. And it goes on to say, would-be home buyers are sidelined, high mortgages, high prices, et cetera, et cetera. Sellers don't want to take a loss. And I know I have read a ton of, okay. If you're in the camp of the whiny sellers and, shame on them and they're greedy and all the things. If you're in that camp, I understand you're angry. I understand you're frustrated. I understand that you feel like you got your hands tied behind your back and you have no options. And you're angry about that because you've done everything you can do. You thought you were doing the right things and now you're in a situation where things are out of your reach and you want to place blame somewhere. I will tell you that putting it on the seller's shoulder, the homeowner's shoulders, is not where you need to be putting that blame on. It is not the seller's fault that they have equity in their property, that they have the option to pull it off the market, and they're going to do so to protect what they have built. Okay. And I'm not talking just baby boomers. I'm a Gen Xer. I've been in my house for 25 years. I have, blood, sweat, and tears in this home, fixing it up, gaining equity, all the things. And if I have, if the numbers don't work, I'm going to pull back. Am I waiting out of greed? No, I want to protect what I have. If I ultimately can't sell it for what I want, well, then it is what it is. But if I have an option to wait, then I'm going to wait. Does that make me greedy? No, I'm just trying to uh, get back what I put into my property. Okay, that is that is one way to look at it. The other way is obviously if you're in the camp of like, well, I don't want to take what I don't, I don't want to give my property away. If you're in that camp, then yes, you have that option. You put the property on the market and you say, oh, the numbers don't work. Great. The thing that I would caution you on is that this market is only going right now. It is only going one way. And I read some reports. I've been very careful of the National Association of Realtors and Realtor.com lately because their data sets are not great. I just don't feel good about calling it reliable data because a lot of positive, oh, the market's going to be great next year. The market's going to be, stellar. The more houses are going to sell, all the things. I just don't see the data to support that at all. I don't. So I would caution home sellers. I'm not telling you to go sell now because it's not going to get any better. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't put yourself don't make decisions under false pretenses. In other words, if you're like, I thought I could get here, but now it looks like I'm going to have to be here. I'm going to wait until I can get here again. That could be a very long wait. Will it rebound? Yes, the market always rebounds. It always. Look at the last 50 years. It does this. Right now we're on the downslide. Will there be an upswing? Yes. When? No idea. We don't know how long it's going to slide for. We don't know when that corner will turn. But if you have time to wait, then go for it. But be careful on waiting on false pretenses. Another reason is the option to become a landlord. I've heard this a lot lately with, some sellers saying, you know what, I'm in a position financially where I can buy before I sell. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy my property so I can take my time, find the right property, purchase it, and then sell it. Well, now I can't sell it for what I thought I need it for. So, you know what? Financially, it might make sense to rent. I would say, though, yes, that's happening. I don't know that that's happening a ton because a lot of the rental markets have shifted as well. It may not make sense. It's number one. Number two, being a landlord is over. My opinion, it's overrated. You have to be a certain mindset to be a landlord. It's a headache. It's the reason why 30 years in this industry and I've never owned rental property because of my risk tolerance is very low. It's just, too many unknowns. But I don't know that that's a big, reason for that to happen. And then they said more total listings. This is absolutely a situation down in the southern regions where there's been, a lot of accumulated inventory. So it then goes on to talk about a number of listings are also rising as a share of all listings, which was interesting the way they looked at that data. Sellers pulling their homes off the market at the highest rate since 2016. Uptick in delistings is propping up the home prices. This is very interesting because this supports my personal feeling based on what I'm seeing, based on what is happening, that the market is not in a position to crash. I think we're still going to slide down. I think it's going to be softening continually, at the very least through 2026. But the reason being is because when you have delistings, when you have these sellers pulling all their homes, guys, it's supply and demand. It's supply and demand. The fewer widgets you have to sell, the more someone is willing to pay. If you're in Gen X, baby boomer, you remember Cabbage Patch dolls. You remember, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Beanie Babies. Oh my, those Beanie Babies. Seriously, people paying ridiculous amounts of money for these things. Why? Supply and demand. There was a very, very low supply, so you were on the street corner selling them crazy high prices, all the things. Concert tickets, same thing. In the housing market is no different. When the market is lower, the prices will go higher. Why? Because people will pay for that. The choices are limited, so they're not going to negotiate. Yes, a lot of home buyers are going to take a step back and be like, yeah, I'm not paying that, and that's fine. But guess what? There's a lot of people. There's a lot of money in this country. There's a ton of money in this country. Is it fair? I don't know. That's debatable. It's a whole nother conversation, but is just acknowledging what it is, that there's a lot of money in this country, a lot of folks that have equity that will sell and buy another property with a good chunk of change to put down on the next property. And will they pay what the seller's asking because it checks the boxes? It's the house that they've always wanted to move into because they're moving up, and it's a neighborhood they want to be in. They really want to be near their kids. It's like first floor, all the things, all the right things, and they can afford it. This is why the prices will not move. They're not going to budge. I shouldn't say they're not going to budge. They're not going to crash, because the fewer listings you have in the market, it's going to create higher demand. Not demand like we had during pandemic, but it certainly is not going to allow it. It's not the right, you don't have the right ingredients to make that recipe. That recipe is incomplete to have a crash. There's no ingredients for a crash if you've got people that want to buy a house at the prices that they're at. Yes, fewer will, but you only need one buyer. You're selling your house to one buyer. You don't need 10, 15, 20. You need one. That's it. Pandemic, 20, 30, 40. Now, 5. Doesn't matter. You only need one. You can only sell it to one buyer. It says the number of homes, U.S. homes for sale, were up, and I'm going to get to the chat in a second, guys. We're up 8% year over year in September, this is so interesting. The delistings and the prices are going to come down, but yet the total number of U.S. homes for sale were up 8% year over year in September. Pending home sales were down roughly 2%, and much of the country is firmly a buyer's market. I would agree, but there's definitely varying degrees of being a buyer's market. You can have barely a buyer's market, okay, or you could have a full-blown high negotiation buyer's market. It says that combination would typically lead to lower sale prices, but prices are still rising, up about 2%. Home prices are up 2% year over year. If you're convinced, you're watching this and you're convinced that homes are going to drop in value more than 20%, okay, more than 20, 25%. Please explain to me how that's going to happen when prices are going up. I don't understand. I can't make that connection. I want to. I'm open. I'm open to understanding. I'm open to calling it what it is, but it's not in front of me. It says the frequency of delistings is keeping inventory tighter than it looks on paper. Many homes have a sticker price higher than buyers are willing to pay, but many sellers are unwilling to negotiate. When tens of thousands of homeowners pull their homes off the market rather than accept a low offer, it effectively reduces the supply of homes that are actually available for buyers, and that keeps sale prices elevated. I will just chime in here and say that there's a lot of talk about home buyers, home sellers that are unwilling to negotiate. I would say that yes, there are home sellers that are unrealistic, stick in the mud. They want what they want. Their heads in the sky, all the things. But a buyer, you do a market analysis, you have the comps and all the things, and you think this is a realistic number. And then a buyer, because they've watched a bunch of, read a bunch of articles, and they come in 10% lower, and then they don't buy the house. So does that mean the seller's unwilling to negotiate? No, I think you got to be willing to negotiate no matter what, but reasonable. Reasonable. Everybody's got to be reasonable. If you have one party that's not being reasonable, then guess what? The scales tip, and everything falls apart. It says some prospective sellers are opting not to list at all, and others are taking their home off the market if it's not getting the price they want. This is Redfin, a Redfin agent in Boston. Now, what he says next, yes, I'll have commentary for it. The sellers aren't motivated because, frankly, it's no longer a great time to sell. Today's listings are getting 1 or 2 offers at best compared to 10 a few years ago. No offense, buddy, but you know what? I think you're missing the point here. I think that, the fact that sellers aren't motivated, you don't put your house on the market unless you're motivated, buddy. And guess what? Inventory is up. Sale prices are up. 8%. Number of homes for sale up 8% over last year. Those are motivated sellers. And getting back to what I said a few minutes ago, they're getting 1 or 2 offers at best compared to 10 a few years ago. Does that make it a bad market? You only have 1 house to sell. This is a jaded real estate agent. I'm sorry. And I don't know who you are, all the things, but I'm just saying this is the type of stuff that drives me crazy. Because why, yes, if you have 10 offers, yes, does it drive up the sale price? Yes, it does. But at the end of the day, if you look at the data, you're honest with yourself about the data, you don't overinflate it based on speculation, and you're okay with the numbers, the realistic numbers, why is only getting 2 offers? There are people that would kill for 1 offer. If you're in a market down in the southern states that is oversaturated with listings, having 1 good offer, decent offer, fair offer, you're like, where do I sign? Why do you need 10? Why is this not a good time to sell? I would say, and I'm going to say this, and I'll put this, and I'll take this to my grave. A great time to sell is when it's the right time for you to sell. Period. Period. Doesn't matter if it's a recession, inflation, a crazy market, a slow market, spring, summer, fall, winter. It doesn't matter. If it's the right time for you, there are benefits. I'm speaking from experience. There are benefits all 4 seasons. We get all 4 seasons up here in the Northeast. There are benefits to every season. There's pros and cons to every season. Period. Don't list your house based on the market. You list it based on your own personal market, your own personal situation, your own personal finances, what your goals are, your family goals, and income, your what your job goals are. To say that it's not a great time to sell, he's doing himself a disservice. He's not looking at the big picture on what's best for the consumer. Anyways, I'm gonna get off my soapbox on that because this stuff drives me crazy. It goes on to say 1 in 5 homes are delisted and then relisted. This was interesting. Roughly 1 in 5 homes that were delisted over the summer were relisted within 3 months. So skews the data a little bit, 20% of homes. This data was in September. How many of those homes went back on the market in October, November? This is the thing that we don't know. 20% of homes that were pulled off the market in July were subsequently relisted, as were 18% of homes that were pulled in June. You guys reach out to me all the time requesting a referral to one of my, pre-vetted referral partners. And when you reach out, you say, okay, I hired this person, and if you're new here, I refer to the agents that, my opinion on the quality of the state of affairs in the real estate industry is 80-20. Probably, to be honest, it's probably 90-10, where 80%, 90% of the agents are like our friend here. They may be proficient and good salespeople, but they're not putting the client first. They're not looking at what the client needs, what's best for the client. They don't have that mentality. They're not going to have the empathy level that I'm looking for in a 10% agent, a 20% of the agents. Again, it's probably more closer to 10. I go through a pretty rigorous vetting process, and I'll be honest, if I have an agent that I interview and I think fits what I'm looking for and then doesn't deliver, I release them back into the wild. They're not one of my referral partners anymore. But one of the, I've had a lot of folks reach out and say, I had my house listed with a 20% agent, an 80% agent. And guess what? The house didn't sell. So I'm going to take it off the market. They take it off the market and they're going to relist it 30 days later, 60 days later. Maybe they take it off the market. They interview their 3 agents and they find out, you know what, some small little tweaks, maybe paint this room or, spruce this up or take some of that furniture out or whatever, and little minor tweaks. And then you relist it. That's what's happening. A lot of times that's what's happening right there. And that little off market period just represents them regrouping because they didn't have a good agent to begin with, which is a whole nother conversation. All right, I'm going to take a quick breather on this. I think I was getting to the end of where I wanted to be on this. I do want to show you where most of the delistings are happening. I'm going to show you that in a second. All right, let's see what's popping in the chat. Let's see what you guys are. See if you guys have any questions and all the good things. Yes, Angie says, I'm sick of all the negative headlines. Eventually it'll work out. I completely agree. I struggle with headlines. I'll be honest with my YouTube videos and all the things because I'm optimistic by nature, but I want to try to reach people, and it's a challenge because positivity does not attract eyeballs. I mean, I'm guilty scrolling through YouTube. If I see something like sensational, I'm like, oh, tell me more, you know. But I am the narrative. I'm tired of the narrative. Right. Yes, thank you very much. I'm on a strict regiment now with my shoulder stretches and icing, and oh my gosh, what is happening to my body? Wiggly arm, you're very welcome. Very, very welcome. I just am, you know what, guys? I'm just sharing with you what is going on up here. That's it. And you know what? If you jive with it, great. And if you don't, I respect that too. Charlton says, I guess showing a house in winter isn't a great idea, especially with snow shoveling. Do HOAs clear sidewalks of snow? That's a great question, Charlton. And it's definitely something that you need to consider on the grand scheme of where you live, what it's going to look like, putting the house on the market. What are your circumstances for selling? I mean, if you're in a situation where you have to sell, you're relocating and you need the house sold, then you make arrangements and you maybe hire someone to make sure that it's, shoveled. I mean, again, I'm in the Northeast, 30 years selling properties. And for sure, there are times I had to put a shovel in my back, in my truck, the back of my car, especially when, gosh, I don't see them as much now, but back when, after the market crashed, 06, 07, we had a lot of foreclosure properties, and those foreclosure properties are not maintained. I mean, they might shovel, they might, plow, but they're not shoveling the walkways. So you've got like 2 feet of snow, a foot of snow. So, familiar with that, but from a home seller perspective, the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you cover yourself. You want to have any liability. So that is a downside. You do need to make sure whether you're leaving the house or not, sidewalks are shoveled and extensively salted. And, when it comes to HOAs, I doubt, I mean, they're going to clear it regardless, but I mean, are they going to clear it when there's a showing coming or whatnot? Probably not. But that would be something you have to check with your HOA to see what kind of, how do they handle that? You might have to end up doing some of that yourself to ensure, that a good quality job is done. Just, you don't want any liability. If somebody slips and falls on your property, it is your fault. You are at fault. Play doesn't matter if you're showing the house. Doesn't matter if the buyers come in your house willingly trying to. Doesn't matter. As soon as they step onto your property, it's your responsibility. So the other thing I would say is if you are selling your property, as a side note, if you're selling your property and you are not there, say you buy another house and you've already moved on, your house is empty, please make sure you have your insurance policy updated. It is going to cost you a little bit more money, but it will be well worth the expenditure. God forbid something happens. God forbid something happens. You want to make sure that you have vacant home insurance and then make sure you have hired somebody to maintain it. That's a great question, Charlton, especially now. I mean, we're up here a lot of I'm south of Boston, so we're just getting rain with the storm. But my neighbors, west of Boston, Western Mass, north, up into into the Maine, New Hampshire, getting a lot of snow, getting our first big snowstorm. So it's a lot of craziness. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Yes, Angie, at least if you list or buy close to the holidays, everyone knows you're serious. You betcha. That's a huge benefit to selling over the winter because you know what? It's those the homes that are on the market, the sellers are super serious and the buyers are not out kicking cans. They want to do something typically. Um mm, 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 mm. Alex says, why should sellers take a loss to sell if wood, concrete, and labor is going up and therefore house prices should go up? Here's the thing is that if you can afford to stay put and you're willing to do that, then, then that's what you should do. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to caution you about. The idea of taking a loss is based on money that you don't have. That's not real. Home value, until you're actually sitting at the closing table with the check in your hand, it's not real. It's all hypothetical. It's all projected. This is what I think I'm going to get. It's not actual cash money. You're not losing anything. There's nothing to lose if you've never had it. I have this pen. You take it from me, then I don't have it. I've lost it. I don't have any pen. I want to plan on getting a pen, but then the pen is not there for me to buy. So did I lose the pen? Well, no, I never owned the pen. You know what I mean? So I think that is one of the adjustments that I see, the narrative that that takes time from a home seller, especially where the prices have been so crazy and now they're starting to settle and you've put money into it and all the things that try to justify it. But at the end of the day, the thing that I would want to impart on you is that the value only is based on what the buyer is willing to pay, period. You didn't lose any value because the value didn't have it in the first place. It wasn't tangible. So that being said, if you can't get the money out that you need to do the next thing that you want to do, then you have two choices. You can either take it on the chin and just say, okay, well, I'm going to adjust my next step and either take a bigger mortgage or buy less of a house or whatever, or sit tight and just wait it out and see and wait for the next cycle, which could be 5-10 years. Who knows how long that cycle. When the market crashed from the great financial crisis, the headlines, everybody said, we'll never come back from this. There is never going to be a time when the prices are as high as they are now because they drop so fast, 30 to 35% here. And that's because that was all bank driven. It was all bank driven. The banks bailed. And the speculative home buying was disgusting. And the speculative home purchasers started dumping properties like crazy, and that pulled everybody down. It went fast. I can't tell you how many people I talked to. Oh, the price is never going to come this high, never going to be this high. And guess where we're at now? And that's the way it is. Every boom, it's the same conversation. So will these prices get back up to where they were at the peak of the pandemic? Yes. But how long? If you have the ability to wait, then buckle up, wait. But keep in mind, if you're selling to cash out, that's one thing. But if you're selling to buy another property, that property is also appreciating. So it doesn't make sense for you to wait. The property values, your perceived value has gone down. Well, guess what? The perceived value on what you're purchasing has also gone down. Food for thought. But great question. Great question. Very similar question. Why would I sell my nice house if I don't get enough money to buy myself another nice house? Then here's the thing that I think is going to happen and is already happening. The expectations need to be adjusted. What do I mean by that? In other words, what you think you can get for what you think your house is worth, maybe two different conversations, two different ideas. And to match it, I mean, if you want to go apples to apples, you can still do that. You can still do that. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath home for a comparable neighborhood in a comparable market, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, you can do that. That is still entirely possible. The problem is a lot of folks are going here and they want to go here, but they don't want to pay the difference. They want their house to be worth here so it can be a lateral move. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. And if there's no reason for you to sell, if you like your home, you're comfortable in your home, then doesn't make sense for you to sell and move. It doesn't. But usually when you're moving, and I see this all the time, is I want to move here, but I want to get into a warmer climate. I want to get into an area near my kids. And that area, like I don't want to yard work anymore. Well, now there's an added expense because now you're either an HOA or whatnot. And that's going to cost you more money. But it's because you're moving to a different type of housing, a different situation. I hope that makes sense. I do understand your question. You have to have, I often say this, you have to have, and this is more true than ever, more true than it has been in the last 5 years. Let me back up by saying that during the pandemic, people were just moving for the sake of moving because it was just crazy. Prices were going up. Yeah, buy something and then wait 2 months and then your house is now worth this. I think that's what people got used to. And that is an artificial market. Properties don't appreciate that way normally. The average of the last 50 years is 4 to 4.5% appreciation is normal. In a normal market, in a healthy market, roughly 4 to 4.5% per year average appreciation. Not 10% a month, 15% in a month. That's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. Here's the thing. And this goes to, whether you want to sell, you want to buy, you have to have a strong, and I've been telling my clients this since day one, you have to have a strong why. Why do you want to move? Why do you want to do the things? Why do you want to make this endeavor? Because moving stinks. It's hard. It's a pain in the butt. Packing up everything, coordinating, putting it on the market, dealing with real estate agents, dealing with buyers or sellers or whatever. It's a pain in the butt. It is not easy. It is not all fun. It doesn't have to be awful, but it's a ton of work. And if you don't have a strong reason to do so, you're never going to make it. If you have that strong why, I want to move near my grandkids. I want to move to warmer climate. I want to get out of this big house. I want to get to a bigger house, whatever. If that need, and I've been telling my kids this for years, of course, they're 18 and 24 soon to be 19 and 24. And yeah, they're not at the point where they're actually listening to me yet. But one of the things I always told them that is if you want something bad enough, truly, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out how to get it. You'll figure out how to get it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be something that's going to be painless. It doesn't mean that you won't have to make sacrifices. But if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out how to do it. If you want to move near your grandkids and it's not an easy apples to apples and the money maybe doesn't quite line up, pull back, do some research, figure out, maybe you need to look in a different neighborhood. Maybe you need to adjust the size of your house. Maybe that you start here, you nice penthouse, whatever, condo, and maybe we need to down, because the pull to be near the kids is stronger than getting that penthouse. If it's not, stay put. Don't sell. That is the reason. That is step one of wanting to buy or sell. Whenever I sit down with somebody reaches out to me, I say, why do you want to do this? Tell me why. If it's like, oh, I want to see what happens. No, we're not going down that journey together, because that's not a road that will lead to good things. It just isn't. We got Parrothead from Rhode Island in the house. Good to see you. Norton says, "I'll take off my house off the market yesterday. We'll be interviewing agents next week." Very good. I'll interview one of my referrals. Must sell this house as I already bought another home and moved. You know, you have a strong why, Norton. You've got a very, very strong why. It doesn't mean you shortchange your process. I'm super proud of you. Interview the agents, take your time, talk to them. You interview 3 agents. If those 3 agents aren't cutting the mustard, find a couple more. Is it a pain? Yes. Does it take more work? Yes. But is that the thing that will protect you and energy we're spent? Yes, it is. But you'll get there. You have a strong why. Let's see. Goofy says, we've recently retired. Congratulations. And been thinking of listing in the spring. We've been getting the house ready to sell. But we are not panicked to sell. We'll list it if it makes sense. Honestly, the whole idea of panic sellers is it's an anomaly. It's a myth. It doesn't. I have yet to meet a panic seller. 30 years. This is something that is driven up, in my opinion. Okay, tell me if I'm share with me the data, or your perspective. You think I'm I need to look at it differently. But panic sellers don't panic sellers meaning fire sale? No. I would say the closest thing to panic seller would be when the market crashed and they're like, "Holy cow, the market's tanking. I want to get out while I can." And then it was like, "Okay, let's just price it. Here's where the market is. We're going to price it lower so we can get a quick buyer." And that's just a reactive seller, not a panic seller. But there are no panic sellers right now. Even what you read about in the news with the number of foreclosures, a lot of the foreclosures that are being that are happening now are foreclosures that were already in the process before the pandemic. A lot of these people are in, they were leveraged to the hilt on their homes, and they let them go. It's not a huge number because of the amount of equity that has been in place. There will always be foreclosures. There will always be foreclosures. Alex asked, we average sellers compete against builders who unfairly get tax advantages from locals regarding hookup charges, etc. Federal tax advantages. Interesting. I'm not sure what your question is there. But yeah, I'm not sure what your question is. Maybe you can elaborate exactly what you're asking on that. Not quite sure. Let's see. Norton says, was on the MLS for 90 days. Ouch. And 2 big price drops totaling 145,000. Took agents' advice on listing price. Oh, man. Okay. I'm on behalf of the real estate industry, I'm gonna say I'm sorry, because The agent's job is to make sure that that doesn't happen. The agent's job is to know the data and be able to correctly interpret the data so you don't end up chasing the market. The market moves. It is a moving target. It is not easy, and we don't have crystal balls. We're not, it's not a science. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But that's a big, big price drop. That to me says that agent was lessons learned. Lessons learned, moving on, right? No rearview mirror. Let's see. Charles says, when the seller pulls the house off the market, does the seller have to pay the listing agent for anything? You need to check your listing contract. I would have to say, I don't have data to support this, but I would have to say that most listing contracts, the majority don't have penalties, but as the market's getting harder, it's getting slimmer, it's getting more difficult for agents that maybe don't have a big book of business. They're not doing a lot of business. And so every little transaction, they're trying to, corral you in. They're trying to trap you. And I would imagine that we'll probably start seeing more fine print, more cancellation fees. I I'm going to say, like, so every listing contract is a little different. I know a lot of you guys reach out to me and say, "Oh, the listing contract is this. What should I do? What do you think?" And it's going to be different. A lot of them are going to be different than what I see here in Massachusetts. Um, some listing contracts are, different agencies, brokerages have different rules and whatnot. The one thing that I would adamantly be opposed to are cancellation fees. Now, the only asterisk I would say is, if if the seller put out, excuse me, the agent put out a ton of money, they spent thousands of dollars on advertising. If people do that these days, I think that's very 1990s, but 2000s, I should say. But if they hired professional photographers and videographers and 360 tours and a couple grand in staging and all the things, they spent a ton of money, and then you just turn around and say, you know what, I don't want to list with you. I do think that that is something that needs to be clearly designated in the contract by the listing agent on, number one, what they're spending, so that you understand, because the amount of money that they're spending, they can justify potentially a fee. But most don't do that. I mean, the fact of the matter is the real estate industry, the way it is, we work pro bono, period. A lot of agents are working for free. They don't give a good advice. They lose listings. They move on, whatever. They don't sit down with a buyer to actually discuss what they're looking for. They end up, being taxi drivers all over the place, and the buyers can't find a house because the buyer's agent's not advising them, and they make no money. And that's the way the majority of agents are in this country. So just read the contract. Read the contract thoroughly to make sure there isn't a cancellation fee. And then just put everything in writing. If you need to cancel your contract because your agent's not delivering what they promised, then you need to articulate it in writing to the agent. And then if that doesn't work, articulate it to the broker. Video share TV. What's an 80 or 20% agent? Yeah, I talked a little bit about that earlier today in the live stream. But it's my opinion. 30 years in the business, 30 years of dealing with agents. One of the main reasons, if not the main reason why I started this channel, is I got sick and tired of the state of the real estate industry. 80% of them they're just not good. I'm trying to be super PG and clean with my language right now. It gets a little hard sometimes. They may be proficient. They may do a lot of sales. They do a lot of transactions, but they are not client first. They may say they're client first. I can sell your house real quick. But did you actually sit down with the client and move at the pace that they want to move at? Did you listen to what their concerns are? Did you listen to what their goals are? If it's in their best interest to not sell, did you tell them that? No. 80% agent will say they see a seller, They see a dollar sign over their head. Great. You want to sell? My job is to sell your house, period. And they go after it like a pit bull. The other part of the 80% are agents that are not well schooled. They don't have good guidance. They don't know the industry. They don't know the terms. They don't know the contracts. Communication. As a late Gen Xer, communication's a big one for me. Because, growing up, having my license 1996, where there was no cell phones, and we had a pager, but everything was done either in person or over the phone. And now I can't get agents to call me. I can't get agents to return calls. Sometimes I don't return text messages, all the things. It's just, it's a whole slew of things, and then just on professionalism. Our job as an agent is to be impartial and not dramatic and not emotional, because the seller's emotional, the buyer's emotional. You have to have some emotional. It's your residence to be or is. So there's going to be an element of emotion. My job is to be the neutral party, to be, look at it from a business sense. Does this financially make sense? So I can say to the seller, you know what? I understand this doesn't feel good. I understand they're asking for a buyer agent fee, but let's look at the numbers. Because at the end of the day, fast forward 3-4 months down the road, it's not going to matter what you feel about the buyers. It's not going to matter what you paid to the buyer's agent. All it matters is the bottom line. And you have, whatever, multiple offers, all the things. That's what an 80%, 90% agent is. 20%, the diamond in the rough. And let me tell you, it is sometimes hard to find those agents. Yikes. Yes, Chick Uskin is care. Chick Uskin care. That was me. I had an 80% agent, waited 2 years and did property upgrades, interviewed, hired a 20% agent. My home sold in a day after an open house. Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about. It's like when you get things just right, it's magic. Sorry if I'm a little bit behind in the comments here, guys. Mary Beth says, "Hi Jen, just looked at a house today that has a cell tower on it. Ooh, no lease. In disclosure documents, the owners all tragically died. We tried to ask agent today about the lease. No reply. Thoughts? I would seriously do some homework. I would try to do some homework, get on the old interwebs, find out why, try to find out why they died. Was it illness or was it a car accident? I guess. I would get extensive research. I'd do extensive research. I know that there's a lot of folks, we have a lot of, above ground utilities here, power lines, older neighborhoods. They're not all underground. And, if you have a house that backs up to the power lines, there are some people that say, I don't care. There are some people that are like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I'm going to get cancer. Oh, okay. That's fine. There's going to be two sides of the story, but I would definitely do some research. As far as your lease is concerned, you're talking about the cell phone company leasing to the owners. If that's the case, I would check the registry, see if there's anything recorded at the registry of deeds, because there should be some sort of a legal document if that's the case. Just like a mortgage note is recorded at the registry of deeds, the actual deed of transfer of ownership is also recorded. Easements, liens are all recorded at the registry of deeds. If there is a lease, especially by a utility company, because, gas company, electric companies, all those easements are recorded at the registry, I would check the registry. And most registries nowadays are online. And I haven't had some small percentage might have an issue depending on how big the town is, but I've had to, sometimes I'll get the referral requests from you guys and need to find out a little bit more research because I'm a little bit, confused with the answers to your questions and stuff. And I want to just verify, the ownership of the property. And I usually don't have a problem getting into the registry of deeds, across the country, for every municipality. Oh, last home sold in our neighborhood, 30 create over ask in 1 week. Wow. Where are you located? Woohoo. All right, let's Becky Becky said, how long should a contract be with a seller realtor in the case that they don't get your house sold? Can you move on to another realtor prior to the end of the contract? How long should a contract be with a seller in case they don't? So I get this question a lot. I personally think that 90 days is sufficient, depending on your market. And right now, I think that when the market was moving much faster, it was a no-brainer. Now the market's moving a little bit longer. Takes a little longer to sell a house. So might it warrant the agent asking for a longer period of time? Yes. If they ask for a longer period of time, you got to make sure you have safety net in there. You have to make sure you have a safety net. If they're like, oh, 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, I just don't think I don't like 6 months contracts. I just don't think that. I think you're again, I'm looking at it from you guys from a consumer perspective. I wouldn't want to tie myself up for 6 months. That's a long time. It's a long time. If your house is on the market for 6 months, something ain't right. Something smells in Denmark. There's something not you're missing the mark. Um, if you like the agent, 10% agent, 20% agent, and I had a question recently where it was like, oh, it's an office policy. Make sure negotiate with the agent. Make sure you have an escape hatch. Make sure there's no fees. Make sure you can cancel anytime. Then I would say as long as it's covered in the contract legally, having a longer contract is less of a risk because then you can get out. But as far as can you move on to another realtor prior to the end of the contract? You got to get out of yes, you've got to get out of the contract that you're in, but you got to make sure you can articulate to the agent why you need to break the contract. You can't if they've done everything that they're supposed to do and all the things, having the house sell because the market if the house isn't selling at the price you want and it's in a market where really the price should be down here and the agent wants you to go down there, maybe they haven't been super clear on why. But if it's that kind of situation, is it the agent's fault? Maybe not. But you can always cancel a contract if they're not delivering on their promises. Oh, we got a lot of awesome questions, guys. Finding Standing Stone says finding many homes on the market for 40 to 60 or more days, finding them delisted and immediately listed for the same price. Then listing simply says for sale until I dig down. Interesting. Yeah, they are. Well, I guess my question would be are they being immediately listed with the same agent or a different agent? That would be the thing I would be curious about. If it's the same agent, a lot of agents, because they don't know what else to do, they'll take it off the market to like create this facade of new buyers. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, it is the old school agents that are been in this business, as long as I have, or close to, that have that mindset of, oh, we're going to take it off because that's the way it used to be. There was no computers or limited information. The market information was not. I mean, before that market information was available to the consumer would have no idea how long it's been on the market. Once that information got to the websites and the website started publishing it, well, what's the point? The only point would be is if they listed it with another agent. But relisting it with the same agent, you know what? Some real estate agents are like, I'm not going to be mean, but I want to so bad right now. Going to be nice and respectful to everyone here. Miss H, good to see you. This is Jen. If the homes come off the market, how would we know that? Do we check someplace to know? I was thinking they sold when I don't see them anymore. So it comes back to where you're looking, what state you're in, because certain states don't provide that information publicly. I can't, it's, Texas comes to mind, and I so disagree with this. Texas will not publish sold prices. And, I talked to an agent once. I talked to an agent, I was interviewing agents, and she says, well, they're looking out for us so that people have to come to the agent to get that information. That is BS. Holding data hostage to the consumer is BS. I'm just going to call it the way it is. You disagree, but you know, being on the side of the consumer, you should have that information. Not everybody shows it. So you might not be able to see it depending on the state. But if you're in a state that does, literally you just go on any Zillow listing and just scroll down until you see market, and you can see where it listed, price changes, solds, and it'll tell you what it sold for. So, it is typically on Zillow, Realtor.com, all the major websites, all the major listing websites will have that information. And if it doesn't say it on your listings, it's probably you're in one of those states where they hide information. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Oh, Maribeth says a follow-up question. I asked the county, no answer. Why is info not disclosed on this cell tower? You know what? Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. You gotta be like a dog on a bone. Get after it. Dig, 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 dig. I will get that way. I'm thinking about something before I even go to bed. It's like, my brain, I can't stop. I feel undone. I gotta have the answer. I gotta figure this out. You gotta be obsessed and just keep digging. If you want the house, badly enough, if that's the house that you really like, or if it's worth it to you, keep digging. You dig far enough, deep enough. The World Wide Web is a very big place. There's a lot of information. But sometimes you gotta dig. Try going into ChatGPT if you haven't done that already. And ask ChatGPT for direction. I use ChatGPT like my assistant. I don't know if the robots are going to come and bite me in the butt someday, but so be it if it happens. But just to give you some ideas on where to go, try that. See how far see if it gives you maybe it gives you some ideas on what to do next. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, Samuel asked, what are some things to ask when interviewing a real estate agent? Samuel, I appreciate your question. I will tell you that is way too long of an answer for me to give to you on this live stream. However, I've done multiple videos on that, and I urge you to check them out. I am hopefully coming. I know you guys have reached out to me for a PDF that you can download. That is something that's been on my list. Honestly, I'm everything's got to have, in sequence and priority. And so that's something that, to be honest, I've been shelving until the winter. Things, get a little quiet after the holidays. So, but in the meantime, I made, what to say to your agent, what not to say to your agent, all the questions. I've done a ton of content on that. So, check out my library on the channel. I'll give you some, that'll point you in the right direction. Oh God, Charlotte says I'm a panic seller. I panic because I have so much to do to get this house cleaned out. I hear you. One step, one room at a time. That's my one piece of advice when I have home sellers. They're like, and I just helped some folks, kind of navigate through that process. You gotta chunk it down. Yeah, chunk it down. You look at it. like this. Oh my gosh, it's so much, it's so much. You gotta go like this. Make a list. I'm a big list maker. That's how I digest things. It's how I prioritize things. You gotta write everything. They call it a brain dump, literally. And you just sit down with a notepad, or you put with your computer, whatever you fancy, and write down every single thing that you need to do in your house. Everything. Then take a step back and put it and prioritize it. You can prioritize it, put it by room. You can do it by task, however, whatever makes sense. You prioritize, and then you only focus on those top 5 things or 2 things or whatever it is. But write everything down. That's how you get things done, but also how you move forward, because the things at the bottom of the priority, at the bottom of the list, they might be the things that are like, it's bugging me, but it's really not as important. And maybe you just don't get to it. And it's good enough. Put the house on the market. It's not going to have that big of an impact. But the things that are high priority are the ones that you get to first. So hope that helps. Dun, 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 dun. Love this, love this. All right, I'm gonna actually take a quick break from the chat here. I want to show you guys. Resi Club has some info on where the delistings are happening as a share of all inventory. So this article, housing market, this came out yesterday. Delistings hit a decade high, and they go into the different areas of the country. And you know what? It's not surprising, of where the action is. Honestly, you have a lot of folks down in Miami. Why? Because the fact that maybe they're listing it too high, or maybe the market has moved too fast and they're priced out of the market. They can't get what they want out of the house, or they're like, you know what, we're tired. That's a valid reason. If you're like, you know what, we've been at this game. Putting your house on the market is exhausting. It is. There's no way you can have a great agent still exhausting. Why? You got to keep it clean all the time. You got to keep it presentable all the time. You got to be ready to go in a moment's notice. Talk about an anxiety-inducing environment, with showings. Even if you have notice, you're like, oh, geez, I got to be ready. I got to be showered. I got to be out the door, yada, 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 whatever. It is, you go through that process 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's exhausting. You keep the house clean and then nobody shows up. You keep it all presentable. Nobody shows up. You're like, I want to go to bed and I'll just deal with all the dinner dishes tomorrow. Yeah, but what if now you've got to leave for work, or you're going to do something or whatever, and you don't have time to clean it, but you get a call from your agent that somebody wants to see the house. It's exhausting. Totally valid. If the reason why you want to take the house off the market is because you can't, physically you're exhausted, mentally you're exhausted. I can tell you right now that is a factor that they haven't taken into consideration with a lot of these folks, especially in this area, Southern California. I would bet you that mayor, Philadelphia. Interesting. That's really surprising, actually. PA. That's very surprising. That's very, very surprising. Although Pittsburgh is where a lot of the action is in PA right now. And this is the share of inventory that is stale. So 60 days over market. It's the same areas. It's the same areas. You can see the trend here. You can see where the trends are, because people are saying, okay, you know what? They're not delisting because they're like, I want the price I want, and that's it. It's like, well, no, they're just like, I just can't do this anymore. I need a break. And onward they go. All right, I want to get into this article. I've been babbling too much here. Manage the time. So the second article, the thing I wanted to get into, and I came across this a few days ago. Housing expert warns Americans about a price correction that's worse than 2008. Honest to God, if I see that worse than 2008 one more time, I just can't. As my friend Jackie would say, I just can't. It says he goes on to say, housing prices have become a major concern, yada, yada, rehashing a lot of what we talk about here. It says housing analyst Melody Wright recently claimed that home prices might drop by 50% as early as next year, and that the U.S. housing market will experience a price correction scenario more volatile than 2008. This is why at the very beginning of this live stream, I said to you guys, my personal stance, which is what I bring, trying to, authentically, I show up on to you guys on this channel. Honest, this is just the way I am. I am curious. I want to know more data. My personal stance is, okay, well, then how do you get to that answer? I'm open to telling me more information, maybe me seeing something in a different light. Been doing that the last year and a half with this whole political environment. I'm like, help me understand. Seek to understand. Before you judge, seek to understand. I always say that, right? At the end of the live stream. If somebody says the house prices might, that they might drop by 50% early next year, like, show me the reasons why, the data, and help me digest it so I can say, oh, okay, well, that I didn't think of that. So I'm open to that. And I think you have to be. I think to advocate for yourself, you got to be open to all possibilities. So I read on, waiting for that justification, and this Melody Wright says, I think we're going to correct all the way to the point where household median income matches the median home price, and so that it is going to be worse than 2008. This could devolve a lot faster than last time. Okay, so here's my question, Melody. Housing prices are gonna meet where they are they're gonna match where the income is. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna not jump ahead quite yet. I'm gonna keep on with this article, so I want to read you the rest of the stuff. I'm not gonna read this all verbatim here. This is Wright stated that the home prices have been declining in several U.S. metropolitan areas due to rising inventory and declining demand, especially in the Sun Belt and the South, which have strong expansion between 2020 and 2022. I'm going to pause there for a second. I hear the statement declining demand all the time. Something to think about. A buyer doesn't decide to buy and then do a 180 and say, you know what, I totally have changed my mind. I don't want to relocate. I want to stay here for the next 15 years. I'm going to just sit back and whatever. Or I'm a first-time home buyer and, I'm going to continue renting. Does that happen occasionally? Yes. Is that the norm? No. They pause. Declining demand? The demand isn't declined. Maybe the number of people that are actively in the market. But I think it's misleading to say that the demand is disappearing. The demand isn't disappearing. It's just kind of going in the corner and like watching the room. Instead of being on the dance floor, they're on the outskirts. Think of a high school dance. That brings back trauma. Don't do that. But, the people, the buyers and sellers that are in the market, they're on the dance floor. The people that are like, oh yeah, I don't like this song. It's not my thing. I'm good. I'm going to go stand over here. They don't actually leave the party. They don't leave the dance. They just kind of take a step back. They're not disappearing. They're waiting for the right moment. They're waiting for the right song. It says, according to Redfin, the median transaction price in October increased. Okay, Melody, how are prices going to decrease by 50% if home prices are still increasing? I'm waiting for it. October by just 1.2% or year over year, indicating a slowdown in the growth of properties nationwide. Absolutely. And I think it's going to continue to be that way for the foreseeable future. Moreover, Zillow analysis stated that the value of 53% of American houses had decreased last year, the worst decrease since 2012. I went over this last week. The values didn't decrease. The zestimates, the perceived value, decreased. Zillow didn't say that the actual values decreased. They talked about properties with zestimates. The zestimate values decreased. Perceived value versus actual value. two different things, not accurate sets of data. She goes on to say that you have this bifurcate. I looked it up. It just means divided. For those that are wondering, the divided housing market. But the majority of folks transacting are in these upper tiers, so your median home price is going to be higher. Mm-hmm. Then her next statement. However, what I've been seeing over the last 3 months, and this is her justification. What I've been seeing over the last 3 months, and this is, I get into the dirty details under the covers. I don't know where she was going with that. That $100,000 to $250,000 sales price, we are starting to see incremental increases in sales in that category. Melody. info@jensylvester.com. Will you please email me, Melody, and tell me where in the heck are you seeing properties between $100,000 and $250,000? Yes, there are pockets in the country, but to see incremental sales, I researched this data, guys. I actually spent a bunch of time looking at and digging in to see if I could find that percentage that information is not available. Percentage of that does not exist. The percentage of sales that is between a price range, exact price range, and what is actually selling, and it's in it. Where's the data, Melody? Is it a feeling? I don't think so. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. But because there's no data to back it. She says Wright predicts a sharp drop in property values by next year, primarily as a result of investors pulling out of the market because of unprofitable homes. I pulled this data up. This is September 2025 data. This is the number of investors are in the United States. She's referring to, insinuating, primarily result of investors pulling out of the market because of unprofitable homes. She could be talking about all homes, 1, 2, 5, mom and pop. She could be talking, but it sounds to me like she's insinuating larger buildings, right? Well, larger, like BlackRock and such. The data I pulled, and this is Resi Club. I trust the data on Resi Club. I actually, I got this through ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT exactly what I was looking for, and it came up with this graph for me. So it's kind of full circle there. I like using technology as a tool. But this is not my data. This data is from Resi Club, backed by Resi Club. 89.6% are small investors. The number of homes that are investor owned in the US, nearly 90% are mom and pop. When you hear on the news that big investors are buying properties, they're dumping properties left and right, go right ahead. It's less than 10%. Big deal. It's not, you think 9% of the population is going to negatively affect, the home prices and impact the market that much? No. I would say that a lot of these properties, if they have investor properties, they probably have rentals. And if the rentals are not, bringing in the revenue that they're looking for, then they will opt to sell them. But most landlords that are renting are looking at long term. And the fact of the matter is rents haven't changed dramatically. Maybe they've settled down a little bit in certain areas, but they haven't changed dramatically. So I kind of poke some holes in that theory. Am I open to the idea of a 50% drop? Well, yeah, if you show me the, viable proof. Nowhere in here is she talking about viable proof. When you're telling me that prices are going to drop, when we can see clearly in the data that the home prices are, I can get back to it real quick. Where was it? I can't find what I'm thinking of, but she's talking about, with the home prices coming up, the number of homes that are on the market, the number of lost my train of thought there, and now I remembered it where it was. Houses are coming off the market. The more houses that come off the market, the more it's going to prop up home prices. If home prices are being propped up, how are the home prices going to crash? If you know and you want to share with me, I'm open to listening. I am totally open to listening, but the data doesn't support it. This is the thing that I wanted to share with you. Those are my 2 cents on that. And I think that there's a lot of folks out there that are willing a crash because, for one reason or another, it is what it is. It is what it is. The housing market, yes, it has components of emotion, but we don't have influence. The real estate agents, all the things, don't have influence. Why? Because you as a home seller, you are the one that's driving the ship. You decide whether you want to sell or not. Buyers decide if they want to buy or not. And if you don't do that, there's not a darn thing a real estate agent's going to tell you to be able to, push you into doing something you don't want to do. Here's the proof. Here's the data. All right. I was excited to talk about that because I was like, are you serious right now? It's all a bunch of, I feel like it's just a soundbite for those that want to listen. Okay. Karen says, we're 64, sold our house for the equity in 1 week at full price. Woohoo. Husband was let go after 18 years. Ouch. Now renting. Do we buy or best to rent at this stage in life? Man, that is a personal decision. I cannot answer that for you. My question is like, what do your, take stock in what your goals are. If you want to travel, if you want to, go out and see the world. I've read stories and watched videos about folks that literally they're like, I want to be a nomad. I just want to go from area to area and rent along the way. The benefit of renting is that you can just pick up and move. You say, you know what, we're going to live here for a year and enjoy everything and then pick up and move to another part country, or maybe move out of the country and then come back to the country. You can do whatever you want. You have that ability. You can definitely move more freely. If you like stability, like I would never do that. Me personally, I would absolutely want to buy a property because that's my personality. I want stability. I want predictability. I don't want to have to deal with rent increases. I want the numbers to work in my budget and not have to worry about them changing, and have a little bit more element of control. But that's me. I would say that at 64, it's absolutely 110%. That is not, in my estimation, you're not out of the ballpark of buying a house. 74, 84, you're not out of the ballpark buying a house. It's all of what you want out of life, what your goals are. What are your goals? Take stock in those. What's most important to you and your husband? And then go from there. I'm looking through here. How can I talk to you about my property that has been on the market for almost 8 months? Ouch. Well, to be perfectly honest, I know a lot of you guys reach out to me with specific questions about your property. And to be honest, I am not in a position to give, to consult you, to give you a consult, because I'm not in your market. I don't have all the information to be able to give you guidance. I haven't seen your house. I don't know what your circumstances are, all the things. My advice would be if you have had a house that's been on the market for 8 months, you got to start talking to other real estate agents to get input. Even if you come full circle because you have a unique property and all the things, although 8 months seems really outlandish of a period of time, unless you got like a $32 million estate or something that just you're looking for a needle in a haystack for a buyer. But if you are, if you're in a situation where your house has been on the market for 8 months, yeah, look for another agent because something's not working, and you can start interviewing more folks. But I hope that helps. But I honestly, I don't think I'm gonna be able to offer you any advice, other than that, because every situation is different, every house is different, every circumstance, every market. So it's hard for me. There's no blanket scenario. It drives me crazy when I see other real estate YouTubers give blanket answers, because it doesn't, not that I'm trying to skate the question, but I don't know all the information. How can I give advice if I don't know the information? Should I buy this car? Well, what kind of car are you looking for? Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, should I buy it? Well, do you want a four-door? You want two-door? You want a sport car? You want an SUV? You want whatever. You understand where I'm going with it. But I appreciate you asking. Let's see. I'm just going to service through here and just get to the QQQs. So many great comments. Here we go. Texas Service Dog Team. My house is listed for sale. Is there a certain number of days on the market that would cause potential buyers to avoid the home? Like thinking, what's wrong with it? This house that nobody's buying. You got to look at what the median days on market is for your area. So when you're looking at your neighborhood, when you're looking at the comparable properties that were used to price your home, look and see how long were they on the market for. Are they, the typical days to offer, not days on market total, which is going to take into consideration after you get an accepted offer, and then 30, 45 days to close. You want to talk about how long did it take for a buyer to come in and for the house to go under contract? Was it 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 30 days? If you're in a market where you're obviously Texas Service Dog, I would safely assume you're in Texas. So your days on the market might be a little longer. So if your days on the market or your days on to offer might be 30 days. I heard from somebody the other day that they asked their agent for days to offer, and the agent told them days on market. And I have a pretty high degree. I mean, this is a data point that is pretty important. And I don't know all the MLSs in the country, but I'd be shocked if the MLS did not provide that data. The problem is a lot of agents don't know how to look for it. They don't use it. They don't really care about it. They just want to get in, give a quick price and get out. And they're not going to spend too much time there. Push your agent for it. It does exist. They should know. They should know when they come to visit you. When they sit down and talk to you about numbers, they should know off the top of their head. When at that point, maybe not on the first visit per se, because they have, depending on whether they do a one or two part visit when they initially meet with you. But I would check if the house if the days to market is days to offer is 30 days. Then the expectations of the buyers are going to be the same. They see a house that's on the market for 2 weeks. They know that houses aren't selling right away. So they're not going to think about what's wrong with it. If it gets past the 30 days, then they might, but that's up to your agent to position your listing, position the marketing so that it stays fresh. Maybe change the pictures, maybe take some new pictures. If you're in a seasonal market, seasons changing, and snow pictures are appropriate, change them up. If you have spring pictures been on the market for a long time, and you got summer pictures and you're in December, probably time to get some more pictures. So that would be my advice. Where do I find that info? So Texas is tough. Texas, you have to talk to an agent. You have to talk to an agent on in terms of getting your days on market. You're in southern Oklahoma. So I don't know about Oklahoma, to be honest. Oklahoma. But that would be typically, so actually what you could do is go on your the Oklahoma State Association of Realtors. I know the Massachusetts Association of Realtors on their website has consumer-facing data available for consumers to view. Market data, including a lot of that data. It may not be specific to your neighborhood. It may be, Plymouth. I'm in Plymouth. Plymouth is over 100 square miles. It's a big area. We have a lot of villages. So it gives you a general idea, which maybe that's all you need. But it'll give you a starting point. Other than that, you've got to, ask your agent. to get you that information. Let's see. All right. God, you guys have great questions. Fantastic questions. Love, love, love all the participation. Guys, I'm gonna tap out here because, to be perfectly honest, I had UPS has been banging on my door for delivery for 10 minutes, and they're just gonna have to deal. But it's been a little distracting. That or it's time for dinner. I don't know. Seek first before you judge. Seek first to understand. That was the one thing heading into holidays. Heading into things like this, with the market being crazy and upended and all things, whether you're looking at property data, you're looking at headlines, seek first to understand. Don't take things for face value. Don't judge someone based on face value. Whenever possible. Sometimes you can't talk to people. I get that. But whenever you can, before you judge, seek to understand, because you might just learn something, which is exactly where the stance and where I come from. Because if you're learning, you're growing, and if you're not growing, you're dying. I'd rather be above the daisies than below them. I don't know about you guys. It's a much better place to be, to learn something new, and then at the end of the day, coming full circle, it allows you to advocate for yourself, so that when you're sitting down with a real estate agent or whomever, you can talk to them intelligently. You can ask them the hard questions, and make sure you're watching out for yourself. Even if the agent has good intentions, you got to double check. You always want to make sure you understand what's going on. Guys, have a great night. I will see you guys all next Tuesday. Oh, almost forgot the poll. Almost forgot. Have you seen a significant number of homes in your area come off the market over the last 30 days? 28%. A few, but not significant. 31%, no change. 41% said yes, there are fewer for sale. There it is, 41% of you guys, and that was 104 votes. So 41% said you guys are seeing changes in the market, which backs up what we're seeing in the news. I appreciate you guys tuning in and sharing that. Guys, have a great evening. We'll see you next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Same bat time, same bat channel. Guys, have a great week. I'll see you then. Ciao. Be safe out there and patient.